Hi again, Peter again, and this is another in my series of consistently better fish and chip shops in the parts of London that I know well. A few disclaimers there, because when somebody says the best fish and chip shops in London, I mean, how can that be? In order to know that for sure, one would have to go to every fish and chip shop every day for an entire year or something like that in order to get an idea of the consistency. Because you could go to one fish and chip shop today and it's absolutely fantastic, and the next day or maybe even an hour later it's absolute rubbish. I mean, because so much depends on if you walk into a fish and chip shop and you order fish and chips and you get them like 30 seconds later, you know that the fish and the chips have been sitting there for a while and aren't going to be as good as if they came out fresh. So I'm trying to allow for all of that kind of thing and just talk about the consistently better fish and chip shops. And there's one of them there on the left, Mickey's, established 1962. We are in, I don't know if you can see it, Norfolk Place, London W2. Right over there is St Mary's Hospital, or an entrance to it. In fact, right in that corner is the Alexander Fleming Museum. He's the fella that discovered penicillin. And if you do go to that museum, do check the hours ahead of time, because I think it's only a few hours a day or a few days a week or something like that. But anyway, if you're into that sort of thing, great. Anyway, so yeah, Mickey's. So Paddington Station is really from here about a 5-minute walk. It's just where that car's just turned left, just go down a couple hundred yards and you see Paddington Station on your right. So if you're coming out of Paddington Station, you'd need to come out through the main entrance, not the taxi entrance, not the entrance on the other side, but the main entrance, which comes out onto Parade Street. Make a left, go a couple hundred yards, and then make this right into Norfolk Place, and there you will see Mickey's. Mickey's, every time I've gone there, it's been consistently good, which is something I can't say for every fish and chip shop that I've been to, which is why I won't be talking about them. Price-wise, Mickey's is, even though it's going to be a couple of pound more in this sort of area, just around the corner. In fact, it may even be that pub. They're advertising fish and chips as well. I think if you're after something quality, I'd always go to a place like Mickey's as opposed to a pub. But of course, in a pub, you got the atmosphere is different, and obviously you can have alcohol if you want, and so there's a bit of a different atmosphere. But I think you do compromise on the quality and the price actually of the fish and chips. So if you're actually looking for that quality, you're better off going to a place like Mickey's. It does take away. There's tables in there, and as you can see, it doesn't have the same atmosphere. Well, it doesn't have the same pub atmosphere inside. It has a different type of atmosphere, which if you're not into that pub thing, then you'd probably prefer going to a place like Mickey's anyway. Okay, bye. Eat out to help out, up to £10 off per person, Monday to Wednesday. Okay, that's a scheme from HM government to encourage people to go back to restaurants. And starts tomorrow, the 3rd of August. And not every restaurant is participating in it, but this one obviously will be, which is this. And this, actually, I should say, is another in my series of the best fish and chip shops in central London, or at least the parts of central London that I'm familiar with. Okay, and we were, of course, just at Mickey's, which is in Paddington, which isn't too far from here. If you go online, you'll find a video of Lady Gaga going through those doors into this this takeaway part of this fish and chip facility. And she walks through those doors, she goes up, and she's in there for about 2 minutes. Then she walks out, and she's not by herself, of course, right? But she walks out, and then she walks along here, where I am now, and she goes up these steps and into the restaurant part of this fish and chip establishment. This side's for people, I guess, with chairs. Anyway, let's have a better look. Yeah, so Lady Gaga had obviously decided that she wanted to sit down instead, and say it's the same restaurant This side on the left, where Lady Gaga ended up, is the sit-down side of things. The side on the right is the takeaway side of things. So, they'll use the same kitchen, and in the restaurant side, it will probably be approximately double the price of what it will be in the takeaway side. Anyway, what's this called? There you see it yourself, Seashell Restaurant. Seashell of Lyson Grove. That's Lyson Grove there, actually, the road going along. Not this side one's called Shroton Street, NW1. Marylebone Station is just down there, and opposite that is the Landmark Hotel, and the big road off to the right is the Marylebone Road, which then turns into the Euston Road, which goes Euston Station, King's Cross, St Pancras, a few things like that. But anyway, and so right now I'm actually outside of Zone 1. Okay, the Marylebone Road is the border, if you like, from the central part of London, where the congestion charge takes effect from. So if you're in this part of London, there's no congestion charge. But if you cross the Marylebone Road and then go down to Marylebone and onwards, yes, the congestion charge is there. Okay, so this is, strictly speaking, isn't, I suppose, central London. But the reason I've included it, because as a general rule, there really aren't that many standalone fish and chip restaurants in central London, and simply because of the rent. And you're going to find a few in hotels. You're going to find some in pubs. But if you're just in that mood for that takeaway experience, or maybe a sit-down experience like this that is not a pub, then there's really not that many to choose from. In central London, I mean, Mickey's that I was just at. That's fine. It's a bit smaller, depending on your situation. That might be fine, and it's really close to Paddington Station. So this is that little bit further away from central London. So why am I mentioning it? Because I really like it. I've been coming here for a long time, years and years and years and years and years. And one thing about fish and chip shops, I mean, it's difficult just to go. It's impossible just to go to a fish and chip shop once or twice and say this is the best. I mean, it's not possible, right? It has to be consistently good, for it to be, maybe even, maybe for it to be even possible for it to be called the best. But for me, every time I come here, it's consistently good. Like, as I mentioned before, if you go to a fish and chip shop and you order and you get it within 30 seconds, you know that the food's been sitting around on the heat lamps or whatever, and it's not as going to be good as, I mean, obviously not, as if it just came, straight out the fryer. So, and of course, if you're after that experience, then fine, But if you want something that's a little bit better, you don't mind waiting, because you're going to have to wait, I've been here many times, and I think the average waiting time is at least 10 minutes. Sometimes it's gone up to 15, depending how busy they are. I mean, the car's been parked there many times. And I don't mind, I don't mind, waiting that extra few minutes. So, and another thing is, this isn't so far from central London. Like, it depends where you're staying. And from where we are now to say, I don't know, Mayfair is going to be about a mile. So it's not like it's a big distance anyway. I mean, it depends where in Mayfair, I suppose. But, okay, let's say a mile and a quarter. It's not exactly a big deal, is it, So I do suggest the Seashell. I really do. And I must admit, I haven't really been to Mickey's a lot. I've been here more. And right now, based on what I presently believe, I mean, this for me is my favourite fish and chip shop in the parts of London that I know. I've never really been let down. In fact, a few years ago for my birthday, Lisa wasn't with me. I actually had fish and chip shops in the restaurant here. And that's the only time I've actually sat down in the restaurant here, because it was my birthday and I treated myself. But there's been plenty of times when I've been with clients and, you know, they want that fish and chip shop experience, and, you know, we've come here. We've come here. It's a little bit easier to park than, say, Mickey's. There are some other places I'm going to get to as well, but I suppose the parking is going to be a little easier here. And by virtue of the fact that it is outside of central London, you know, not by that much, there's going to be a bit more space inside as well. Yeah, and of course, you know, the ultimate fish and chip experience would be to sort of buy fish and chips from the takeaway side of a restaurant, and then eat them as you're walking along. I mean, okay, I can understand why plenty of you don't want to do that. But anyway, and they've also got quite an extensive menu in here, actually. I mean, you can't really see it from here. But anyway, and yeah, so Marylebone Station is just over there. Oh, there's a Tesco's over, a little Tesco's over there. This is Lyson Grove, and if you go up straight up here about 3/4 of a mile on your left-hand side, you'll come to Abbey Wood Studios, and of course just outside it is the Abbey Road zebra crossing that the Beatles have made very famous. And there's still, I bet if I went up there now, there'd be people walking across that crossing and slowing down the traffic and writing graffiti on the wall, and I think they actually have a live cam there as well. Anyway, that road down at the bottom, that is the Euston Road. If you go down there, I mean, there's no right turn, but if you did turn right, you'd be breaking the law in a car. But let's say you did that, and then that would be the A40, and that eventually would turn out to become the M40 and out to Oxford and Birmingham, places like that. You get out to the lights, turn left, it then becomes Euston Road, and you'd be heading out east. Alright, bye. What do you know? Part of St. Paul's Cathedral. But what's that got to do with fish and chips? Well, this street here, just in front of me, is called St. Martin's le Grand. This one here is called Gresham Street. Just over there is the Piccolo Bar. There's 4 of them actually. There's one, well, we're going there next. One in Mayfair and one in Sloane Street, Chelsea. And as a general rule of thumb, they're your, sort of basic kind of cafe, nosh, diner type thing. There's I'm not sure about this one. I've only ever had takeaway from this one. But some of them you can actually go in and sit down. I'm not sure about this one. But anyway, but if you're in the city of London, you just fancy like it's not a cup of tea, it'll be one of those styrofoam sort of things, like £1.10 or something like that. And there'll be your sandwiches and what have you. Not sure if this one's got fish and chips though. But if you're in the mood for sort of that cheap and cheerful nosh, this might do actually. Does it have fish and chips? Breakfast, lunch. I know the one in Mayfair does. Fish and chips. Oh yeah, fish, chips, peas. Oh, maybe it does then. Okay, what? If there's no prices, it's probably going to be about, I don't know, £5.50, something like that. But you see, it has a whole bunch of other stuff as well. But we are open to eat in upstairs. Okay, so they do have some seats. But anyway, so if you're in this area and you fancy fish and chips, and this place is open because today's Sunday. So Sunday in the city of London, a lot of places are closed. Streets are really quiet, which is why I like being here on a Sunday. Anyway, it's really close to St. Paul's Cathedral. St. Paul's tube station's just there. And there it is, piccolo bar. Well, that's the walkie-talkie building. We are west of it on Queen Victoria Street, and just over there is another piccolo. Now it does say on it open 7 days, but today's Sunday and it is closed. Whether that be because of all the stuff that's still going on, or somebody just hasn't changed the sign, I don't know. Anyway, I've never actually been in this one. I mean, driven past it thousands of times. So I'm assuming it's kind of going to be similar to the other three. One of which, the one on Gresham Street, I've just told you about. So 2 more to go. This one doesn't have a menu on the outside, so can't actually tell if it's got fish and chips or not. If it does have fish and chips, then I guess it's just going to be the same as the one we just saw. One thing about fish and chips, this is just a general thing actually. A lot of the times, if you ask for fish and chips, you're going to get fish and French fries. And of course, there's a big difference between French fries and chips. French fries are skinny and longer, and chips are shorter and stubbier. Chips are not those things that look like Pringles. For some of you they are, of course, but over here a chip is a shorter, stubbier thing. So if you want fish and chips, you don't want French fries, just make sure you know that they're not going to give you French fries, because that's actually happened to me once or twice, and then I don't take it, right? I don't want it. I return it and don't pay for it. So some places will advertise fish and chips, and it will be French fries. But that's not the majority, I have to say. I mean, I assume that buying French fries wholesale is a lot cheaper than buying chips wholesale, and not potato chips like Pringles, not that type of chip. Anyway, piccolo. That's 2 of them down, 2 to go. Au revoir. Well, there's the Curzon Cinema on the left, just behind it, the entrance, or one of the entrances to the Saudi Arabian embassy. And I've never seen this before, not in this area anyway. This is Shepherd's Tavern on Hertford Street in Mayfair. The reason I'm here is for piccolo bar number 3. Okay, there are 4 of them. We've already visited the 2 in the City of London. Another one is on Sloane Street in Chelsea, a couple of 100 yards north of Sloane Square on the east side of the road. So as you're going up from Sloane Square, that's on your right hand side. That's also a piccolo bar. I think that's the smallest one actually. This is the one I'm very familiar with. We're in Mayfair right now. This is very much my territory. And they do have seating downstairs. Got a little bit upstairs, but more on stools actually, as opposed to seats. A lot of time I come in here early in the morning and there'll be some traffic wardens having their breakfast. They do have all you can eat. They do have different breakfasts. I haven't really had one for a while now. I think I paid $5.95 for the piccolo breakfast special, they call it. It was $5.95, and you can pay less if you want. Depends on what you have, sausages, bacon, whatever. They also do fish and, well, they advertise it as fish and chips, but it's not. At least not when I went anyway. It's fish and French fries, which really annoys me actually. And I didn't take it. I refused it. So if you want fish and French, well, unless they've changed, depends what they're up to. But if you want fish and chips and you come here and order fish and chips, make sure it's not French fries, before you order it. And no matter what they say in their on their menu. But if you do get fish and chips and it's fine, then it's around about £5, something like that. So price-wise, that's pretty good, and it's fine, for what it is. But I say, if you are looking forward to chips and you get French fries, don't blame me. You have been warned. Anyway, but they do lots of other things as well, like wraps and melts, paninis and pasta, you know, all sorts of things. But it is right in Mayfair, and just over there is the Four Seasons Hotel, a few hundred yards, and the Intercon opposite it. Dorchester's just over there, and 45 Park Lane. Claridge's is up a ways. So if you're in that mood, you know, for this type of place, then here it is. So if you're in the mood for fish and chips, but not in like a fish and chip shop, you know, like Seashell, right? I mean, Seashell is very nice, has takeaway, has a restaurant next to it, but it's primarily for food, particularly fish and chips. It's not a pub. So if you're in the mood for something that's not just fish and chips, but you want more of a pubby atmosphere, there are definitely options. And there are many pubs that are primarily pubs and have, particularly over the last, since 2006, since the no smoking ban, there are many pubs that have they've also they're still primarily pubs, I suppose, but they have restaurants as well, and many of those restaurants will have fish and chips as part of their menu. It's not just fish and chips by any means. You know, they'll have curry nights and you know Thai nights and you know all sorts of things. But there are also pubs that are probably just as much restaurants as they are pubs. If you can see that sort of discrete difference there, and most of them seem to be owned by chains, restaurant chains, and the one I frequent most is a chain called Wetherspoons. Now, that was founded by a fellow called Tim Martin, and I suppose there's two reasons why I favour Wetherspoons over some of the others. Is that a colleague of mine named Tom claimed, and I believe him, claimed that he taught Tim Martin that everything that Tim Martin presently knows about restaurants and all of that, and that if Tim Martin is listening to this, and if you wish to contact Tom, assuming you can remember him, and assuming Tom is not fibbing to me, then just leave a comment in there and I'll sort that out for you. Anyway, so I suppose because of, I mean, it's silly, what does Tim Martin know, right? I mean, Tim Martin doesn't know me from Adam, but he might know my colleague Tom, I don't know. Anyway, so because of that, I suppose I have a preference towards Wetherspoons. And another reason, this is going to annoy some of you, is that Tim Martin is very much for Brexit, and a while ago he took out I think a lot of his Spanish and French and Italian wines and replaced them with ones from Australia and New Zealand and other places. So I suppose because of that, that's another tick in the box for Wetherspoons. But to be fair, the other chains are probably very similar. I don't know. So if you see a Wetherspoon restaurant, and there's plenty of them around, even in central London, and if you're in the mood for that type of, not just the food, but also some alcohol and just coffee and water if you want, then I have to admit I've always had an okay experience at Wetherspoons. It's not gourmet dining, and sometimes some of their restaurants can get really, really chockers. But I've had fish and chips in them many times, and it's always been absolutely fine. I've never had any complaints against them. I mean, I wouldn't go there if I was into that sort of Michelin star experience. But if I was into that pub/restaurant experience, then Wetherspoons is fine. This phone is just aimed at this particular Wetherspoons, which is on Holborn, which is close to the British Museum. But Westminster's over there. Well, Mayfair and all that is over there, a mile and a half, something like that. And there are Wetherspoons closer to Mayfair than this one. It's just that today is Sunday, and it's just easier to sort of film some of these things when there's not so much traffic and people around. And Wetherspoons, it just doesn't have fish and chips by any means. I think they have something like 5 menus, depending on, vegan and, gluten-free and God knows what else. So there's a substantial choice at Wetherspoons. Drinks as well. I mean, you can just have coffee if you want. One thing actually about pubs, I should say, if you do go into any pub, not just Wetherspoons, as a general rule of thumb, what you have to do is find a table where you're going to be sitting first. Look at the menu, decide what you want, go up to the cashier, place your order, and then pay at the same time. And then they'll give you, and then before you do that, make sure you know your table number. There might be a little disc or something, or some way, some way of identifying your actual table number. And when you place the order and pay for it, then give the person, your table number, right? So then when the food's ready, and it doesn't normally take that long, I mean, sometimes I've waited 5 minutes, sometimes I've waited 15. It's not the end of the world because you got drinks there, so you can kind of, keep going on and drink, I suppose. Anyway, so when the food is ready, then your food can be brought out to you. So whatever you do, don't go to one of those places. Find a table, sit down, and then wait, because you're going to have a long wait. Sooner or later, someone's going to explain things to you. But anyway, so that's just it's a little oddity, I know. But I mean, most all these places do it. I mean, if you go to fine dining, okay, it's not going to be like that there. But certainly, if you went over to that Wetherspoons and all the other Wetherspoons, and I think there's another chain called Shepherd Neame. Never been to any of their places, but I'm sure it's kind of similar to Wetherspoons. But anyway, so if you're in that sort of mood, right, then I have to say, Wetherspoons is quite fine. And they do have one, I know there's one in Soho I've been to a few times. There's one in Victoria. I don't know where the others are. But anyway, bye. Okay, here's another fish and chips P. I've never actually been in here. I've heard a bit about it online. And as you can see, it's called Fish Central. And maybe that's one reason why sort of people go out of their way to come here, because it's not really central, to say the least. It's in Islington. It's just off the Goswell Road. And if you're going to be staying in that sort of general Westminster, I don't know, Knightsbridge, Paddington, Victoria area, that kind of thing, then this is definitely, here we go, this is definitely out of the way. It really is. And it looks as though it has a takeaway and a restaurant. Restaurant has reasonably comprehensive menu, but I have no experience of going in there myself. And so I really don't know. I'm trying to figure out why any of you might be in this sort of area anyway, from the visitor point of view. I mean, the city of London is kind of down that way a bit. But even then, it's not really. If you're doing that normal, visitor stuff, then you really wouldn't be in this part of London. And just over there, I don't know, a mile is St Pancras Station, and next to it is King's Cross, and St Pancras is where the Eurostar comes into. The trains from Europe, because we're not in Europe anymore, kind of. But even then, I can't really justify coming, even if you are at those railway stations or in the city of London. I just can't justify coming up here for that chippy. I mean, not unless it's absolutely excellent and to die for and all that. And I don't know, it's probably a nice average, I suppose, but I don't know. I just don't know. Anyway, bye. Okay, there's another one that seems to come up quite often. Poppies, fish and chips. There's 3 of them. One's in Camden, or right by Camden Market. So if you're anywhere near there, well, we'll get to that later. There's another one in Soho. We'll get to that later. And there's this one here, which is really close. It's on Commercial Street. Well, it's strictly speaking, it's on Hanbury Street, is it? There's Corbett Place. That road over there, it's Commercial Street, and just like if we did go make a left a few hundred yards down on the right is Liverpool Street Station, which of course is on the edge of the City of London. So what else is here? Well, just the other way, down there a couple of blocks is Brick Lane, which if you're into Asian food is probably pretty good. But we're not talking about Asian food, we're talking about fish and chips, and Poppies is one that seems to come up here and there. I've only been to one of them, not this one. This is, as you can see, Poppies of Spitalfields. And on Sunday it's going to be really popular because Brick Lane is going to be really busy on Sunday. Petticoat Lane, Old Spitalfields Market is just over to the right as well. So, but if you want to get out of the humdrum of those type of places, then as you can see, Poppies is not jammed. It does do takeaway, and you can also sit down as well. Prices are, it's kind of central London, isn't it? So it's going to be what it is. Again, it's not going to have that pub atmosphere. For those of you wanting a, fish and chips, and the pub atmosphere as well. This sort of none of the Poppies are going to be any good, because they do specialize in fish and chips and other stuff as well. So if you're looking for perhaps a better food experience, I would tend to go to any of the Poppies rather than a pub. But someone's always going to prove me wrong. Anyway, so this is one of the 3 Poppies, and see here. You see, this is Commercial Street here, and to the left is to the south, and Liverpool Street Station is just down there. Okay, later, Gators. Okay, I'm at a different Poppies now, but just to make sure about something, I was just talking about the Poppies over in Spitalfields, and I pointed out to a road and said if you go left, go a few hundred yards, and Liverpool Street Station is on your right. Well, that was kind of correct, except it's about 1 block over. So you go to that main road, which is Commercial Street, go over about a block, just to the other side of Old Spitalfields Market, and then make a left down on Bishopsgate, and you'll see Liverpool Street just there on your right. So if you do come to Liverpool Street Station looking for that Poppies, then there's different exits, but if you take the kind of, well, either way I suppose, it's going to be about a 6 or 7 minute walk to that Poppies. This Poppies is different. This one's here, Old Compton Street, City of Westminster, London W1. See the flag there on the right, and another one there, and there's the Poppies. Same sort of thing. You can eat in, you can take away. Prices are about the same as the Spitalfields one. This is high rent around here. This is Soho. So the rents are going to be really, really high here. So you're going to, of course, they have to put up their prices to allow for that. Location wise, what can you say? It's just off Shaftesbury Avenue. There's a few theatres around there, just down there. Under normal circumstances, Mary Poppins, but there's quite a few theatres around here, for sure, no doubt. And you're a lot closer to, Mayfair or all sorts of areas like that. Definitely. But you are going to be paying a bit more for the location. Again, it doesn't have that pub atmosphere, so if you're looking for that pub atmosphere, none of the Poppies are places to go. you know, quality-wise, you know, I'm sure they're all up to a certain standard, and again, on average, I think quality here is going to be better than pubs under normal circumstances, right? Let's say you are going to be paying a bit more here simply because of the location. I mean, they have no choice, you know, do they? I mean, their rent must be really high. One thing about Soho, this is Old Compton Street. Now, these COVID, you know, thingamajigs has affected a lot of things. This is, you know, this is a normal road. I've driven along this road hundreds of times, I suppose. That's Wardour Street there, and that goes up to Oxford Street on the right, Shaftesbury Avenue on the left. If you were walking by car, you couldn't do that. But see, a lot of these streets in Soho, they've closed off the traffic and they've pedestrianised them. They say it's a temporary measure. So under normal circumstances, you know, these tables and chairs wouldn't be set up outside like this. And it's kind of nice that, you know, the weather, you know, it's not super hot, not really, you know, it's just kind of okay, really. It's not raining, it's not that windy, so it's fine for this outdoor eating. But they say it's temporary because of all this COVID stuff. In a way, it's kind of a nice idea, isn't it? You know, if you can imagine all these people now who are eating outside, if you can, you know, if they were actually inside eating, you know, obviously that, you know, puts people closer together. It sort of jams places up inside. It's kind of nice, isn't it, as it is now? So who knows? I'm 50-50 about it, because obviously it does affect things with the traffic, to say the least. One thing about Soho, Soho is probably the official gay and lesbian capital of the United Kingdom. Fine, not a problem. However, sometimes you're more likely, like if you were just in this area, particularly, you know, the later it gets into the night and early morning, you're more likely to see people of the same sex holding hands, kissing, you know, stuff. I mean, you can kind of see that everywhere these days, I suppose, but in this area, certainly, you know, generally speaking, a lot more of that. So if you're offended by that type of thing, you know, it's probably best to avoid this kind of area, this Soho area. But if you're not offended by it, you know, it's not threatening, quite harmless. I mean, just, you know, come here, enjoy yourselves. You know, there's, you know, a lot of restaurants around here, and say theatres, you know, just over there. You know, that's more Soho, and say Shaftesbury Avenue is just down on the left. So there's going to be all sorts of theatres in this area, and not just your traditional stage, you know, / West End type stage theatre. And when I say theatre, I don't mean, some of you will think of theatre as like a movie theatre, you know, where you see films / movies. I mean stage theatre, you know, where you see people on stage, you know, performing live, you know, that type of theatre, as opposed to cinema. So a lot of theatres around here, probably some cinemas as well, but certainly, I mean, this is the West End, you know, I mean, there's a lot going on here, lot going on. Anyway, so that's Poppies. Right, just one more Poppies to go. Bye. Well, where in London can you see this? There's like a zebra crossing here, and if you look on each side of this intersection here, this one, the one over there, the one over there, and the one to the left, they're all in these rainbow colours. Okay, that cuts down where we're likely to be, and just have a look at the surroundings there. Yeah, it may not be everyone's cup of tea, I must admit. It's a little bohemian, however you want to describe it. A few people here with different coloured hair, stuff like that. Look at that. There's a Ray-Ban store over there, and a store over there called Namesti. If you look in front of it, you can see a sign. Zoom in. Can you see that sign? Poppies, fish and chips, 1 minute. which if you're in a car you can't do. You can't come up here and turn right into this street, which is what you can do if you're walking. And just down there is Camden Town tube station, so that obviously tells you where we are. But the market, Camden Market, you can see up here, Camden Lock, and just past that on the left, that's where you have the stables and the market, and you can just see just at the top of that slight rise there that the rivers, well, the canals under that, and to the left that's where you can pick up a canal boat and go off to Little Venice and Paddington, or walk along the towpath. The zoo's off to the left, and there's a very big market there. But I say it can be a little bit bohemian, and it's maybe not everybody's taste. There is a store there called Mad Dog, and if you ever do go down there, depending on your point of view about certain things, you might want to go down to the basement and check some stuff out. But you know, what's that one called? All you can eat for, what's that, £8.80? See that? Anyway, I'm not taking this video because of all that stuff, to be honest with you. I'm taking this video because of this. Indeed, this is the third of the 3 Poppy's fish and chips. We've already seen the one in Spitalfields, and then there's that one in Soho, and here's the t'other one. And you can see it's got its own taxi. I've actually only ever seen that taxi outside this one Poppy's. Never seen it outside the other 2 actually. So I'm not sure if that taxi is just, you know, just belongs to this Poppy's because they're all franchised out or something, and this taxi just belongs to this one Poppy's. I've parked down there once because a couple of years ago, some customers treated me to fish and chips here. It's the only time I've actually been in any of the Poppy's, and it was this one here. And it was we sat down, and there is a takeaway. You can see on the left hand side there's that says restaurant, and on the right hand side takeaway. According to something on the window, they have live music every weekend. Up on the first floor there it says live music, so I don't know if that means every day, but on the window down below, the taxi's blocking it, it says every weekend. Anyway, but I say right now there's pandemics going on, so you know, some things aren't as they normally are. So anyway, so what did I think about it? Well, I mean, the food was the food. Price wise, it's about the same as the other 2 Poppy's and anywhere else that you might expect in, well, not quite central London. We're about, I guess, about a mile north of St Pancras, King's Cross, those train stations. So from, say, central London, like Trafalgar Square, the statue of King Charles I, I suppose we're about 2.5, 3 miles north of that. So it's not central. But the prices are, I think they're similar to what I saw in the other 2 Poppy's, and what I'd sort of expect actually, which to my mind it is more than what I'd like to pay for takeaway fish and chips, because you know, the quality, it's kind of more about the same, to be honest with you. There was nothing incredibly different about it. So again, it depends what else you're into besides the actual fish and chips themselves. I should say that I sat down and it reminded me of an American diner. It was all a little bit tacky for me, what with the music and all of that. But again, it depends what you want. Like if you just want fish and chips only, right? You don't care about anything else. Then you know, this I wouldn't come here. I'd go to Seashell. If you're just into the fish and chips themselves, I really would. But here, people go here because there's a certain atmosphere to it. You know, there's the music and the ambience, and you know, it's a bit hectic. It was busy. It was a bit noisy. It might be too noisy for some people, but there was definitely an atmosphere to it which some people would like, but others not. But I wasn't in the mood for it. You know, if I'm in the mood just for fish and chips and I just want takeaway fish and chips, I'm not going to come here. Another reason why people do come here is just over there. There was this Camden Market, which, depending on your point of view, can be an absolutely fantastic market. It really can. There's some nice pubs around there. The canal's there. The boats are there. There's a lot of interesting stores around there. That's one way of putting it. The park's over there. Regent's Park is just over there, the eastern side of it. So if you're in this area anyway, I mean, there's all sorts of restaurants around here for sure, but if you're in this area anyway and you fancy fish and chips, then fine. Then fine, you know, come here. But of course, the caveat I put there is if you're in this area anyway. Which, you know, a few of you might be because of, you know, various things I've just mentioned. But if you're not in this area anyway, if you're in central London, like around Mayfair, St James's, Victoria, I'm trying to think where some of you are more likely to be staying. But if you're in that Zone 1 area, or Kensington, somewhere around here, and you're not coming to the market and you're just into fish and chips, it wouldn't be worth coming here, not for me anyway. Say I don't have fish and chips that often, but one reason I do go to Seashell is because it's a little easier for parking as well. It's not ideal, don't get me wrong, right? But most of the time there's going to be, you know, I might have to go around the block once or twice, but most of the time it's kind of okay. Whereas here, I remember once I ended up parking down there. See, there's double yellows here. There's some spaces there, but you see there's only 2. Or you can just, you know, park on the double yellows and take a chance. And of course, anytime you go into any fish and chip shop, you know, if you go in and you order and your food gets, you know, delivered to you within a minute, you know that it's been cooked, you know, however long before, and it's just been sitting under heat lamps, and the quality isn't going to be there, right? Which is fine if that's, you know, what you accept. But you know that if you want the, you know, something, you know, where the quality is a bit better, you got to go in, and even if you have to wait 10-15 minutes, then fine, that's the price you pay for, you know, something a bit, you know, better quality, a bit hotter. And so in theory, I suppose, if you're driving and if you find, you know, one of these spaces available on the double yellows there, I guess you could take a chance. Not sure about the cameras. Can't actually see any, but anyway, so yeah, so this is the last of the fish and chip shops I intend to talk about in this video. I should say I have concentrated on the areas that I'm most familiar with, which is going to be central London and the bits a little bit outside it, like here where we are now, Spitalfields, where another Poppies is, you know, just on the outside of Zone 1. But, you know, there's going to be plenty more, that's for sure. I mean, you know, to know where the best fish and chips, look at that cyclist right through the red light, of course. You know, to know where the best fish and chips are in London, it's not possible because it doesn't exist. You know, there is no such facility that constantly, all the time, continually has the best fish and chips. I mean, you could go to one place, you know, one time, and an hour later it's going to be different because of other factors that come into it. So it's just not possible to say that, you know, XYZ has the best fish and chips in London. I mean, you know, you can say that, you know, there are quite a few places that have consistently good fish and chips in London, and I think Poppies would qualify for that. But I don't think, I'm certain that it doesn't exist to say that one place has the best fish and chips in London. It doesn't exist. And the other thing to consider is, you know, what else you want. If you just want fish and chips and you don't care about the atmosphere and the location and all this stuff, right? And you just want fish and chips, then personally I'd go to Seashell. But if you want other things, you know, like the atmosphere, like the pub atmosphere, some people want the pub atmosphere. You know, they want fish and chips, they want to sit down, have a pint, or you know, martini or whatever else, right? And there's plenty of places to do that. But the quality isn't on average likely to be there. But again, you know, if you go to, you know, the Dorchester Hotel or the Savoy or somewhere like this, and you know, and pay £50 for fish and chips, or no, maybe not £50, £30 or whatever it is, then yeah, you know, you're another cyclist through the red lights. Then you can, I can smell weed. Okay, where's that coming from? See, it's Camden, you know, this is how it is. But yeah, if you go to one of these 5-star hotels, then sure, you're gonna probably get decent quality fish, decent quality chips, and you can have a beer and whatever else, but you're gonna pay for it. So it depends what you want beside the fish and chips. Again, some people love the pub atmosphere. There's some great pubs that are, say, on the river that offer fish and chips, or not on the river, like next to the river, that offer fish and chips. So you can do that. You know, again, you're going to compromise a little bit with the quality, but then you're going to have the river views, and you know, there's some nice places with nice locations for sure, right? You know, if you want a place like this here, Poppy's, this particular Poppy's, not so much the other two, with that live music and that kind of diner type feel, then fine, you know, come to this one. And it kind of fits in a bit with being in Camden, or this part of Camden anyway, because this is how it is around here. So it kind of depends, it depends. Okay, this is it, Lisa, Najma, let's see where you're going to take me when you get back here. Bye. Well, and I almost forgot this one, for which I really apologise actually. It's not the London Beer Factory, whose awnings appear to be up, although the place itself appears to be closed. It's Sunday, maybe that's got something to do with it. The place behind it is also closed, and that is the subject of this video. And it is the final one. I know I said that in the last video, but I actually forgot about this. It's the final one in the fish and chips of central London. The reason I kind of forgot about this is that I've only ever been here once, and that was on a day off. It is, like a lot of places in central London, really difficult to park around here. Maybe not today, because it's kind of quiet. And so that's why I've only ever been here once actually, and it's fine, I have to say. You know, it's central London, it's Covent Garden. Prices are going to be, as you'd expect, central London, of course. So it's going to be, you know, £2-3 more expensive than other parts of Greater London, but that's still going to make it a few pounds cheaper, say, if you were to sort of go to a pub. But of course you've got that pub atmosphere, which you don't have in this fish and chip shop. It's called the Rock and Soul Place. It's number 47 Endell Street, which is Covent Garden, and it's on the junction here. You can see Shorts Gardens, and if you were to go down there, that goes down to 7 Dials. If you go up there, you go to Shaftesbury Avenue. You go down there, you come to the Opera House, and if you go beyond that, then you get to the Strand, Aldridge, and what have you. Charing Cross and Trafalgar Square, that's over that way. So this isn't quite in the most frequented part of Covent Garden, but it's only a short walk. And if you're in this area, and you don't want that pub atmosphere, then this is fine. This really is. Also here, just behind it, H stands for hospital. This is this used to be the British Lying In Hospital, and it was until 1913. It's now a private club. See this mentioned in with quite a few celebrities going in here under normal circumstances. But that's why it's called the hospital, because it used to be the British lying in hospital. Anyway, so yeah, again, if you're in central London, this isn't really too far to walk away. I mean, the Theatreland is all, we're just on the edge of it really, so it's not far to walk. Covent Garden Tube Station, all that, that's just over there, a few hundred yards. So yeah, again, I wouldn't have any qualms about coming here if you were in that sort of mood. Again, you're not going to have the pub atmosphere, because as you can see,
Because I'm afraid this is what it is.
not a pub.
And I think you should be
With your hand sanitizer. And so there's some tables and chairs. I'm not sure if they actually set them up outside, if they're allowed to. But anyway, so yeah, this definitely, 47 Industry. This definitely concludes this series of fish and chip shops in central London, the areas that I know, or cyclists. I mean, unbelievable. The cyclists have just, this is a one-way street actually, from left to right, not right to left. It's just uncanny. I actually find it disrespectful. I mean, when I cycle, I don't break the law, Anyway, so yeah, so this is it. So, great. Later, Gators. Okay, now I'm under the awning. I've just noticed this Rock Stolen place does have that's the takeaway on the left. That's where I was before. And this is next door to it. And this appears to be a bit more of a restaurant type experience, if you're so inclined. So yeah, so that's it's right next door. So yeah, they do that as well. Okay, bye.